the other oh, we're live. Hey, what's up?
Oh, you're saying this one. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
What
The three boxes.
Yeah.
Three
Yeah,
boxes.
and then you want to go
why don't
wide.
you turn your
Cole?
phone sideways? Yeah.
Sideways.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta put the Twitch. I gotta put the Twitches. All right, let's get this thing going. Here we go. What's up, guys? John Cintos here. Cass Kreitlow, Cutternation podcast. Please do us a favor and share this on your social media. Screen record. Do whatever you can. We're trying to put out some highlights, but there's only so much time in the day. Check out our online store with our hats. We got our hats. We got our apparel. I'm rocking Live or Die by Your Best Pitch. Our guest, Cole Newell, probably would pick a changeup because that's his thing. And we'll get into that in just a minute. But thanks for tuning in today. If anybody has any questions, dump it into the comments or DM us later. We would love to get some stuff out there. But without further ado, second time on the podcast, Cole Newell, CN Pitching is his Instagram name. He is. Let's give him a quick shout out here.
I don't post my face very much now right now, but I was told myself I was going to wait till I get a certain amount of people, and then I'll start showing my face.
It's funny that you say that. When I went back to look at it, I was thinking about it, and I was like, God, I know we had a great podcast. I don't remember his face. Went back and looked at the old video we did on YouTube, and I was like, I remember it was great. It was awesome. So you're rocking 10K.9 followers. You guys go follow CN Pitching. Let's get him to 11. And your most recent content has been amazing. We got past four. We got Walker Buehler in the gun, which I love that photo. It's one of my favorites. We got DeGrom doing his thing in the pen. Pedro. I want to go into that Pedro post. Remind me about Cass. Did you check that out? The Pedro post where Pedro's hooking the rubber there. Very interesting.
The Pedro
thing.
post?
Yeah.
A lot of them. There's a lot of Pedro.
Yeah, for sure. Conyo finish is my life. That's what we're trying to do all the time. Anyway, so Cole, for the people who the new people that have now followed you since the last time we met, why don't you introduce yourself, tell everybody where you're at, where you're from, where you're coaching, and maybe just a little bit about what inspired the page.
Yeah, so, right now we're located in Kansas City, so we're on the Kansas side, not the Missouri side. I coach right now in high school, but I, of course, consult, whether it's professional, college, high school, and then all the way down to little leaguers. But right now we do, of course, one-on-one instruction here in Kansas City, and then when I coach in the spring, of course, the season's canceled, but played college 4 years, and then got injured, just little elbows problems. I think a lot of it, what I figured out down the road is probably was a little bit to do with strength. I'm humble enough to admit that now. That is probably because I wasn't strong enough, but it wasn't because I wasn't strong in general. Just wasn't taught the right way to build strength. And then got into kind of like that coaching, just studied the game. So before I worked with anybody, I just studied, and I was just like, man, what could I have done? So now, still young, of course, still throwing, ththings like that, and I'm better than what I was. So that's kind of weird. It makes me mad that I'm. Of course, you figure it out down the road that.
Of course,
you figure out your mechanics and the way your body moves a lot better. So that's kind of a little elevator speed of kind of what I am, who I am, and the reason we started seeing pitching. I wanted to get in. I saw there's a lot of people out there. There's coaches in the area that just didn't really. How do you say, teach the game very well. So I wanted to kind of just do that. And it kind of just started really slow. And I'll just post things here and there. And then all of a sudden it just exploded. So I'm pretty grateful for that. And then we're just trying to put out stuff, man, and let kids learn. I wish I had this platform when I was younger to be able to just jump on a social media and just be able to read and learn, whether it's how to throw a slider, cutter, change up, things like that. So that's about it, man.
Yeah,
So you're from Kansas City? It's interesting. What else? Like, I'm from Minnesota, and just like the general vibe of what gyms look like. It's all just like lessons and teams and kind of half-assed teams. Like, what's it like?
You very rarely get middle of the pack. It's a lot of either higher echelon. You're going to pay a lot. You're going to get fairly good instruction, guys with really good titles, and then you're going to get the very recreational based program. So it's very hard to get kids in the middle. And I think that's kind of what I've targeted is a lot of my clients are kids that are in that middle spot that are capable. They just need that next jump to get to that higher echelon guys. But yeah, it's a lot of academies in the area. It's either academy or very rarely is there a dad coach team unless it's recreational. So
Yeah.
it's that Midwest vibe now, I think. And I mean, it wasn't like that when I was playing, obviously. I mean, we had really good kids that were playing at the lower levels that could have easily played the higher levels. And they started really young here. So 8 years old, 7 and 8 and 9. And these kids are pretty good. So, but Kansas City baseball's blown up. Yeah. It's blown up here. Like we don't get to throw and play all year round. So we have a lot of indoor facilities, things like that. A lot of turfed out places.
Yeah, the place that I went to in Kansas the past couple summers, it's called the Forum, and it's like indoor soccer / baseball with batting cages, 4 or 5 basketball courts, gymnastics. There's like a fun zone trampoline world attached to it, and then and gymnastics and beach volleyball, and it's just it's the Costco of sports right there. It's a one-stop shop. But then what was interesting when I talked to the parents and the families, like what you're saying, is in comparison to California, is there are no locations besides that. Like it's the one-stop shop, and your kid rotates through soccer to basketball to whatever other baseball to whatever they're doing, and they do it all inside the same building. It's very interesting way that they kind of go about sports over there, because it doesn't. Yeah. It seems like in theory you could probably keep going in your development if you were doing stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then I don't know. I mean, of course, you want kids to play multiple sports, but some people in the area will get upset if a kid doesn't specialize. So it's kind of like the kid's in limbo whether or not. Like I was talking to a coach, and he's a Royal Scout. He actually coached me in high school, but he was telling me he was mad that one of the kids is playing football rather than trying to get recruited. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I understand that he's a senior. He wants to play his last Friday night light games. Kind of let him do that, but I understand it's hard when you're juggling playing football, and then I mean you got to get your baseball work in too. So people got to understand that. But it's easier to get, I think, going because he was a catcher. It's easier to go get some hacks in rather than if you were, let's say, a basketball player. I feel like it's kind of a hit or miss, especially in the winter, trying to go out and shoot hoops when it's 10 degrees. I mean, but being able to go in the winter, get some hacks in on a weekend, I mean, it's extremely doable. You just got to manage your time a lot better. So that's I mean, it's all time management. Being able to don't play Call of Duty and go get your work in.
You know what? It's funny that you say that. I find that one of the things with video games that seems to happen, be a recurring story that happened with myself and other people that talk about it too, is like if you overload the amount that those video games happen, like normally it just turns off and they find something else what to do, And I think that the education on video games has increased tremendously, and I don't think I know it's an influence and it's bad to a point, but you got to take it for what it is. Like we're talking about fantasy land, like ones and zeros moving around on a screen.
It really is
some form of interactive entertainment,
Jordan Peterson talks about it almost like dreams, and that it's basically a dream, and that there's a lot of usefulness in that, especially and this is totally not my lane, but I can just imagine if you do it right and you create worlds, like you can actually create healthy worlds. It's not that hard to create these things that are basically like a virtual Lego or virtual, anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
I think that's what Minecraft kind of is, actually, if you think about it.
Right, like all of
version of it.
Yeah.
And it's fundamental. Like there's engineering, they're building stuff. There's and there's always going to be the thing that people I think are worried about with protecting kids is I don't think we just don't educate the kids on there's going to be assholes. Like if you just lead with that, hey, you go onto this thing, there's going to be some random people that are going to try to rally you up and do some stuff. Just don't engage. If you can set the stage of what this is, I just feel like the stigma would just go away so much better. Right?
I don't even think about that part of it. I always just think about just screen time in general. But there's
a whole interactive thing. That's it. For me, I feel like video games are. I can't believe we're going down this right now, but I'll do it. I feel like video games are 1,000 times more stimulating than a YouTube video because it's interactive, right? You're actually controlling what you're doing. So the motor learning, the hand-eye coordination, the strategic thought processing, the thought processing time that your decision making is all increased, you know, and a lot of those things can actually help you out throughout life, right? I think that where we miss it is the variety of the games, the variety of exposure to the person is where the things can get lost, right? I found it growing up that I was playing strategy games like Civilization and Age of Empires that made me think about budgets and building and engineering and infrastructure and defense and offense. And there was so many different aspects of the game. And I was like 12, right? And so it was probably my first exposure to like understanding and classifying what's happening inside of a game and being able to understand who's the winner and who's the loser and what things go with. And then as I've seen our leaderboard society continue to grow, I'm seeing a lot of those strategies exactly implemented in the baseball world, like hit tracks, where they have a leaderboard based on age that, or an open division where anybody can get into it. And those are good. That's actually a good thing. That means there's a community of people that are okay with the parameters of the information they are submitting, right? Based on a result and an outcome that they're all working towards, which is exactly the same thing as a video game. Hit tracks is a different version of a video game.
I mean, you look at it as if like I'll play MLB The Show, but like it helps, let's say, kids figure out pitch sequence, things like that. So,
100%.
You know, I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to throw fastball, curveballs, fastball again, and inside out. You know what I mean? So it helps them understand that pitch selection, things like that. So there's the beauty in that. And then like I was playing, I'm not saying I don't play video games, but I was playing like the new Call of Duty Warzone with some buddies. I mean, we're strategizing basically where we're going to go to try to win the game. I'm not very good at it, but it's
teamwork,
fun.
Communication, effectiveness, right? Like there's so many ideals that come with these things that if you think about it, right, so I remember there was the issues with like television at the beginning, right? That's what it was. Like kids were spending hours in front of television. Well, we're doing the same thing when we're putting screens in front of kids with, you know, watching the YouTube videos and the baby sharks and all that. I think that if baby sharks were interactive, no, totally. Think about it. It's just colors and things that grab babies' attention and these, you know, and it's got music and it's just captivating to these kids, right? It's such a sensory overload. But if it was interactive, you could accelerate learning massively, right? Especially if there was a reward system or some kind of point thing and then they could figure it out. Like, I don't know how early in the processing they could do that, but if you actually made learning fun to the point where it was disguised in this other thing, I figured that out by playing. When I play games, I'm all over the place with stuff. And one of my favorite games that I've ever played was Assassin's Creed. But I didn't realize as I'm playing it that I'm learning Italian history of all of these things and these other artists and this stuff. And it's taking you through these three-dimensional worlds, and you're able to see some of these cathedrals that are projected to be what it looked like then. But it's just you in your own imagination, how much time it would create to do that. It's just not possible.
And that's, I'm like jumping into a lot of like the CGI, like TV shows that they're coming out with. Like, I'm a history buff. So yeah, there's a show on National Geographic where he'll go and do his research and then show you what, you know, Atlantis would have looked like, things like that. So, and it's all with CGI, and then it's with augmented reality. So he has his phone and he can just scan it, and it shows what it would look like. So
that's crazy.
We just need to create an app where a kid can take a picture of his mechanics and play with it. And now, do I know how to do that? No. So, but you know what I mean. If you create a video and you have somebody that's can just grab their knee and see what it would do if he pulled his knee up lower in his leg or in his leg.
But you're talking about like an actual interactive thing that would. Wow. That's a progressive idea too. That's interesting. Yeah,
I don't know if the technology's out there. I'm sure it is.
Well, they have motionless motion capper, markerless motion capper. I can't say it. Markerless motion capture right now. They have it. It's available, and it's only like $250,000. And how is it not?
No, it's not. It's like $100,000.
Oh, 100.
It's not even that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think for like
we
big
saw
league
it at
teams,
winter meetings, so it was.
But yours is different. Yours would be like a little bit more predictive, right? Like, hey,
right. Yeah. But I mean, it would work with I mean, of course, I don't know if that's even possible. I mean, I don't know how you would predict what would happen if someone changed a certain part of their mechanics. I mean, it's hard to predict because probably a billion different possibilities. So, yeah, that seems pretty time constraining and outside my brainwaves.
Next.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding.
So,
dogs can play baseball too, right? No, I only say that because I got my dog right here. He won't leave my side. So
that's hilarious. That's a great point. Yeah. How would a dog?
No, I love where your head's at though, because we're simply just trying to figure out how the heck can we communicate better to the kids that we're trying to get better. So
right.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to competition and some other stuff. So, we had a small conversation earlier, and I know we haven't talked about this too much on the podcast, but Cass and I were fortunate enough this year to go to Nashville for the coaches convention. And Cass's fourth year, how many? Fourth year. And now I am super jealous that he has 3 more years than me because it was a life-changing experience because I did not realize that I could be in the mecca of all of the baseball nerddom at once. And you said you were there. I didn't know you were there. It was sad that we didn't get a chance to have a beer and talk about it, talk about stuff because Cass and I were going back and just being like, oh, like, what is happening? Like, my head hurts.
What are we talking about right now? What are we talking about right now?
Yeah.
But you don't realize how I mean, going back to like sensory overload. I mean, I walked into the convention, the trade show, and I was just like I didn't know there was this many. I knew, but like I think I didn't know there was that many like products that were either 1 in development, 2 already out. There's just so much. I walked in and I was like, oh my, where do I start? I mean, I know like 3 people here. I mean, of course you got your big guys in the middle. You got your Rawlings, your Wilsons, the glove companies, all the tech guys. I mean, you have all of that, but I was just like, geez, like I didn't even know this was that big. I knew it was big, but I did not know what it has become. I was just baffled.
Well, that was way bigger than anything that it's ever looked like. It's never looked like that.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's because that was
huge.
It's okay, so
they literally had
the industry's getting.
Because I was there, my first year was in Nashville in 2015 or 2016, and it was that whole entire. There was a whole other room. They had that whole other gym or whatever that was. Yeah. That wasn't even there last time. There was a whole other 1,000, 1,500. 2,000, whatever
it was unreal. It was unreal, and it was that place was. Yeah, and that place was massive. That place, that Grand Ole, the Opryland, holy moly, that place. Yeah. And then I think when we were leaving, we were jumping on our plane, and one of the coaches like, so what'd you learn? And I was like, I didn't realize how prominent baseball is. So I knew I didn't know if baseball was growing. Descending. I mean, it's always been in my life, but I didn't realize how just large the game has become in a good way. So it's not like it's bad, but hold on, my dog, stop. But basically, I didn't realize that there was that many people that would show up. There was 5,000 to 7,000 coaches there.
It was 7,500.
Yeah. So I walked in and coach was like, be ready. You guys are going to be stressed. I'm like, yeah, right. I mean, there's going to be a couple of vendors. I'll check out, see what we have. But we bought a lot of stuff for our program there. So we didn't get a chance to use it. But yeah, it was pretty cool. John, what did you think of your first time going there? What was your experience like?
I had done a little research on some companies that were going to be there. And so I had a list of some people that I wanted to go talk to and, didn't even finish it. And then as I'm there, more people reached out, found out that I was there after we said we were there, tried to get to them. And then it just didn't, there were too many good conversations and too many good leads. We we established some relationships with some other people doing the same stuff across the country, and it really helped us understand. Like we've been watching this for a long time, but there was a lot of verbiage and things and strategies and methodologies that I wanted to talk to people about, and it was just so cool to meet those guys in person, and then we really just had some good conversations. Hopefully they have it next year, and we can figure something out like that. But if they don't, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to like some form of Zoom situation where we can have some kind of roundtable fun time, but. And who knows? I mean, other than that, I ran into some buddies. You Go Pro Baseball, John Madden, the baseballologist. It's good to see those guys because, like, I think that where baseball does get it right, especially what I see on Instagram, and granted, I'm not in the other spaces very much. It's like we have these ambassadors for the game of baseball, itself, and they've been doing it for a while. John's been doing YouTube for. I don't know, like 10 years now.
For a while.
For a minute. And he seems to still be finding content. And when you look at him and how, he's connecting with these other companies, I'm starting to see a good bridge between the private industry, the scholastic industry, and then the tech. And it's all starting to come together where people are actually having conversations where, some of these phrasing and these ideas about how to go about training are being exposed, and it's a good thing. It's great for the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool seeing like guys that I follow on social media, and I was like, oh man, I've seen him. It's cool to see him in person. He's a lot bigger than I imagined, things like that. So it was cool. I was just so overwhelmed. Because I went in, I did a little bit of research, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go sit, listen to the the guest speakers, things like that. But I had no idea it was going to be that large because it blew my mind out, and so all of us other coaches were just looking at each other like this is, and it was all, I mean, being with a group of guys that's been our first times, it was of course it was overwhelming. And you get back on the plane and it's all the guys that all the coaches in your area all get on the same plane, so you had conversations to talk about rather than being rivals and things like that. So but yeah, it was cool to listen. Some of the things from a standpoint of like being in the high school level, there was some like having a professional coach, like with the technology, it's hard for, us to get our hands on like a Rapsodo or things like that. And that's why I'm excited for like the Pitch Logic stuff, because I think that's gonna be so much more affordable for people to be able to, especially programs, to use that stuff and get that feedback instantly rather than, I mean, the slow-mo cameras, I can do that with my iPhone, things like that. So
yeah, we're doing it with remote training. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's tracking. It's helping with spin rate. The kid, we got a couple younger kids. I think we have a 10-year-old that has one. And one of the things I explained to the dad was just real simple. Hey, spin efficiency is something we really need to focus on right now, and try to get it above 80%. And that should just be maybe even 70% to start. Like, don't make it crazy. It doesn't need to be 100 at first. Like, just try to make it do its best job spinning what it's doing.
Yeah, I challenged. I don't know if we're talking about the same kid, but I challenged one of our remote training kids yesterday to send me video of a 12 o'clock, a 1:30, and a 3 o'clock fastball, and they were all the same. And the fact that that's actually a really easy thing to do. Do you know what I mean? Just like be an Iron Mike, be a shortstop, and then be an athlete,
Right.
And this isn't to say, oh, you should know better. It's just that, oh, you can know better. It's not that hard. So like you could figure that out, without any information. What 10-year-old can't figure that out in 2 weeks? And it might be like banging their head against the door where they're trying to like move their hand without moving anything else. And it's like, all of a sudden they're doing this stuff but like they probably will figure it out on their own, because they're going to want to pair that with velocity, right? They're not going to just want to see spin. They're going to want to see the velo too. So it's interesting.
Right. And the velo's a big thing. And, I'm sure you guys get tons of questions. And the thing, like whenever we do like a Q&A, people are like, how can I throw harder? And I was like, I think that's beyond the point. The point isn't how can I throw harder? What are you willing to do to get yourself physically in that position, mentally and physically. Because if your kid's like, I want to throw harder, I'm like, okay, we'll just, lift your leg higher. Well, I mean, I'm doing a disservice as a pitching coach, but two, it's not just that. I think there's a lot of variables that comes to it. Spin rate, things like that. Spin rate is almost a direct correlation to your velo, what it could be. So I'm sure. How do you guys handle those questions when, let's say, somebody sends you a message, hey, how can I throw harder? I know some guys don't respond. Some guys, me as being someone, I'm like a people pleaser in a way. I'll respond and be like, I don't think that's the right question asked. What are you doing right now to get yourself better? And then they'll be like, push-ups. And I'm like, oh, well, you're gonna have to do a little more than push-ups, bud, or your plyo balls, things like that. So there's just so many variables. You can't just do one thing. You got to do what you do with your plyo balls. You have to do some things for your lower body, things like that. So, but how do you guys handle that situation? A kid comes up to you, whether it's a new client that's like, my first thing is I want to throw harder. And you're like, do you throw strikes? Like, how do you guys handle that situation?
Cass, you want me to go?
Yeah.
So I just say throw more. Honestly, I think you got to pull back, you got to lower your standards, and you got to throw more, right? It's literally about frequency. Like, if you want to be a good thrower, like the fact that, so in the live with Ferber, like he was talking about, some people haven't even thought about the idea to see how far they can throw it. Like, it just hasn't entered their brain, right? So if that hasn't entered their brain, they probably haven't even asked themselves, how fast can I throw it, right? And then normally, if you are okay with throwing the ball as fast as you can, you're going to miss. It's probably going to be bad, right? But there is something to learning how to get it to where you want it to be. And as long as you understand that it needs to feel good at the same time, you can start learning. Like, learning 95 is what it is. It's not getting to it. It's not like a grind to get to it. It's a learned process. You have to learn how to do it. So it's, that's what I say. And then exactly to your point, we get a sideways video all the time, and the first thing they ask is, what do my mechanics look like? And I'm just like, bro, I don't even know where the ball's going, right? It looks on time, but like, your evaluation system to what you're looking at it's to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense right now. Cass may look at it completely different, and he'll comment on that, and that's what makes us kind of cool. I'll throw it on.
So I would just say that I think what we have been in the process of doing, teaming up together at Cutternation is like, we're looking for a certain kind of person. It's not that we're like not looking for somebody that wants to check in every now and then, but that's really just not the story that we're sharing with the people. Right. And so the level of commitment in general is high, right? We're looking for people that are very interested in committing a lot of time and energy into this, because we pour a lot of our time and energy into our athletes, right? And so it's just part of the process. So I think the idea is it's just like you said, it's like, we just have to ask better questions. We have to, this is about us educating our parents. And so a lot of this, a big part of my reason for wanting to do podcasts is it's such an easy way for us to have the conversation without us having to sit and preach to our parents and our kids and our players, right? Hear it from your perspective, right? And so to answer your question specifically, velocity is something that we are going to embrace all day long. Because whatever you need to hear, like, yes, we can have velocity. Yes, we can make you feel better. Yes, we can throw strikes. Because the point is you have no idea what you need right now. And we just need to help you understand, like, you can trust us. Let's go. And this is all a learning curve, right? So our 8-year-olds, when they come in, hey, this is actually very healthy for them to be coming to us on a consistent basis. You need to trust us as an authority in this, just so we can stand up for you and your kid. One of the most common things that I hate seeing is the person that goes to a tournament, the kid's arm sore, they go to the doctor, they shut it down for 2 weeks. Like, that's not a linear relationship. That's usually not what should be happening. But they just, the general population and the general practitioner just are not in our world. And so anyway, the velocity thing is just a very loaded question, right? And the fact that people don't think that throwing strikes and velocity is the same thing, they just don't understand how movement happens then, right? Efficiency creates these things, right? So if you move really well, you're going to throw harder. And if you move really well, you're more likely to have the ball have command, because moving well is a balanced thing. And like, it's not that hard to be in command when you're in sync. You know, this is all just like, shit, how do you ever answer this question, right? Isn't this the age-old question?
Yeah.
So
it's, I mean, a lot of it, you know, especially when it comes to like the healthy part, I had a lot of kids that'd be like, Coach, my arm hurts. I'm like, well, what'd you do when you warmed up to throw? They're like, I was like, well, like, did you do anything? I know you stretched with the team, but what have you done on your own? Did you do any bands, anything? They're just like, no. I'm like, well, you got to understand, like, especially in the elbow is connected to the shoulder. So wouldn't the shoulder be one of the first things that you want to at least warm up? Because that's what I learned, especially when I had my elbow tendonitis, was a lot of it was attributed to my tricep being really tight from my shoulder being really tight. So it kind of was just like a domino effect of that. I mean, was that going to work for everybody? No. I mean, of course, just because my triceps really tight doesn't mean John or yours is. So, you know, that's what we've especially developed, is like the individualized programs, is being able to, I'm going to give you a nice foundation, but are you willing to figure out what feels good for your arm? And that's what we, you know, established here at the school I'm at, is we're the first program probably I would say in the city that has developed a program where kids can come in and I'll be like, all right, let's do your warm-ups, but they do what they want to do. Of course they do their team stretching together, but if they like doing 3 sets of 10 on bands, then do 3 sets of 10, man. But if you're a guy, if I see that your arm's hurting and you're not doing anything, then of course I'm gonna get on your butt. But yeah, a lot of it comes to being able to understand your body. And then I think that moving well, kind of what Cass was saying, is such a huge thing. And we've been preaching that a lot, is just being able to move athletically. But yeah, it's pretty crazy out there, especially kids asking me velocity questions. Because I mean, if you look at my page, I haven't posted one thing how to throw harder. It's all probably how to throw this. So it's mainly changeups. So
I'm gonna say this because I have a different perspective on this, Cole. And I'm just for what it is. When I was in Minnesota, it was not part of my narrative, and since being with John, it's actually such an easy thing to say. So if it comes down to like
the velocity.
Yeah, if it comes down to like semantics and, you know, the image of it, I'm telling you, man, like the people that balk at it, like it's crazy, because I was the guy that was like very conservative with it. And I'm looking back, and if I would have just said I trained velocity 7-8 years ago, my programs would have been more successful, because I know what I'm doing anyway. And so I know you know what you're doing. It's just one of those things that I didn't know how big of a difference it was going to make for me to just like get that out of the way, and then also be able to go like, okay, now I can really comfortably have that conversation and like really understand what that you know, what that entails. Because, you know, you really, I don't know that we would say like, because Driveline's whole thing is like, you might get worse, right? I'm not guaranteeing anything. And I don't know that we've made anybody worse, because the thing is when everybody's baseline is just beginner, right? We're not making people worse, right? Because we're making kids better just by like being a better human being, like, and like you said, like preparing them. So anyway, a little tangent there, but
no, it makes total sense. I mean, I mean everything that we have done, whether it's one I've learned from what you guys have been doing, so I appreciate all that stuff. But yeah, it's pretty crazy, and I think a lot of it is I get to that conservative point where I'm like, well, I'm very I wouldn't say generic, but I'm very like, I don't want to make any promises. And I think that's just from one, being a little bit younger, and two, again, being kind of like that people pleaser and not wanting to make anyone upset or tell them, you know, how it is, things like that. So.
Well, and the thing is your kids gain velo, right? Your kids get better, like your kids get stronger, you know, they get healthier. And these are the things that it's like, you know, you can look at it one of two ways. You know, we've been just like, hey, we're new to town. We have to just tell people what we are. We have to be very direct with our message. If you already have something going, right? Like when you have the before and afters, like people see that the reputation is there. It's just another thing. But for anybody listening, like this is the other thing that we deal with as in the private sector is like we have to sit and we have to produce, right? We have to make kids better no matter what, right? And then we have to figure out how we're going to frame that. What kind of culture are we going to have? Are we going to be a bunch of badasses? Or are we going to be like, are we going to bring God into this? Like, and that's not even a silly thing to say because there are many different ways that you can approach teaching the game. So it's just one of those things where, and I will say this, in the Midwest, from my experience, it like the conversation is just like so much different out here. Right. Like, of course, velocity is a part of it because everybody throws over 90. Like, and I don't know enough about Kansas City, but
no, you're right. I would say, especially out where you guys are. I mean, you guys are getting a lot of good arms. Here, I think this all comes down to what John was saying earlier is just throwing. We don't throw enough.
Yep.
In a way, I mean, of course, I don't want a kid throwing 12 months, but if you do it in a way that's been strategized, done correctly. Of course, if I'm going and max throwing for 12 straight months in a competition setting, I can guarantee that there is more strain. I wouldn't say strain's the right word, but there is more effect to your body throwing in a game situation than there is throwing a bullpen at 90 to 100% indoors, things like that. So I feel like there's more because there's a lot more adrenaline going on in a game situation.
Kids in the Midwest, they do not. So when you talk about, I've said this before, just between John and I, when you see kids in the Midwest, in my experience, when you see them throw year round, these are 1 to 2 times a week that they're throwing as hard as they possibly can. And then throughout the summer years, yes, they're going to be throwing the ball, 4, 5, 6 times a week. But we're talking about that's a really unhealthy way to approach those other 6 to 9 months out of the year, whatever So we're talking like when we're suggesting long 12 months out of the year, it's like every day, like you're moving your arm every single day, and you're taking 1 to 6 days off in a month where you don't pick up a baseball, and that's kind of that window, because that's what it takes. And I'll plug this last thing is. This is so, I was just thinking about, I don't know that we have more talent. We just have kids that have thrown more, right? Because I look at, and I was going to ask you this, in Minnesota, the best athletes are going to be in other sports. They just don't often gravitate towards baseball, right? Is it similar there in Kansas City?
Well, I would say the best athletes, they still play baseball, but they're doing 3 sports. So you got, especially at the high school level, you got your best athletes doing football. Well, he's a quarterback. He's not doing any baseball training or anything. Then he goes straight into basketball. Well, I mean, those guys play quite a bit, especially I feel like in the Kansas City area. I mean, basketball is important. So, and then they go straight from basketball to baseball. And then what's the first question I asked one of my pitchers? I was like, hey, how much have you thrown? A couple times a month. I'm like, well, bro, you're already 6 weeks behind, like, because you've been playing different sports. I'm not saying don't play different sports, but how committed are you? Are you just playing this just because you want something to do after school, or are you really trying to get better and go play at another level? I mean, that's what it all comes down to. So, but we don't have, and the kids that are throwing hard here in Kansas City, I mean, you got scouts there every day just because it's so, especially if you're a scout in this area. I mean, when you hear a kid throwing, let's say 88 to 92, I mean, they're going to, because it's so, I wouldn't say it's rare, but it's so hard. It's a very slim picking when it comes to those kind of kids. When out in your guys' area, I bet you 88 to 92, it's like, well, he's going to go play D2 up north. You know what I mean? So it's such a different world.
It's a different world.
Yeah, it is. It is a completely different world. I agree. You know what? I'll go on record and say this. Like, I think that one of the issues and why kids are so scared of like building velocity of their own and not worried about it is that I think they don't understand when to stop. Like that is a big thing. And I love Alan Yeager's take on that. And this is kind of in line with that is, you gotta learn what you can do. Right. And there's very simple strategies to go out to count things. And I'll give you an example. When we go long toss, we don't count our beginning throws. We're just trying to have fun. We know where our end goal is on where we're trying to get to. But the throws, when we get to whatever max range that is, that you find out, which is different every day, right? That's when we start counting. So I'm going to count those throws. I'm going to count my max distance throws. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to count my shuffle fire throws, because those are more stressful, right? And so I might end up with 10 to 15 max distance throws, but it might have taken me 80 throws to get there, just really taking your time to get out there, and then come back on shuffle fires, and there might be another 10 to 15 more. And that's just what I like to do. I know that Taylor likes to do it also when we long toss together. Cass has done it. When you get done, there's a good feeling. You can feel when you get into shuffle fires or when you get into your max distance throws, when you're like, and you can also see it, right? The ball dies, it runs. You might, you know what, I need to take a break, right? So you come back in, that first throw is going to feel weird. You're probably going to feel like you're going to sail it, Tip for pull downs on a field and distance, always miss low rather than high. You'll surprise yourself actually where you'll throw the ball. But
that's anywhere on the field. That's anywhere on the field.
Yeah, exactly. Practice. Anywhere on the field. Exactly. So, it's I don't feel like it is a difficult thing to throw that idea out, because it's just, hey, you just got to be smart. Like, use your head, be logical, listen to your arm. If you throw one and it feels terrible, probably should be done for the day. Probably should be done for the day.
And that's what whether it's just wanting to get things done quickly, it's not going to take you 5 minutes to toss, because you're going to be hurt. And that's what I've tried to teach a lot of guys, is the way exact same what you've done is like really extend, really get that body ready to roll. Because on those max throws, that's when it really counts. So especially in the long toss days. But there's days, here where, it's 90, no wind. You're like, oh, I feel great. And you got days where it drops to 50 the next, or let's say 2 days later. Your arm's going to feel different. So being acclimated, I'm not sure how it is for you guys out there in your beautiful, sunny California weather, but basically, on our long toss, we've never kind of going out counted. The only time we've count throws on extending would be getting back into the swing of throwing volume. So our throwing program would be, let's say, 12 throws from 30 feet, and then you go back 12 throws, things like that. A program we've developed to where right after like a winter months where a kid is done throwing and we get him back in the swing, that's when we'll count throws. But I've never been one that's like, I'm going to count throws, especially in a long toss day, as far as going out. Of course, I want to, if I'm out 100 yards, we want to be able to count how many throws we've done that day. That way you can just feel like, oh, well, like that's what I felt like on that day. And I threw 10 throws at max. You know what I mean? So I love that option, that theory. And I wouldn't really say it's a theory, but that program is so beneficial, because I don't know how you feel. It's hard for me if a kid's like, oh, like he's not telling me the truth and his arm feels like crap. Well, what's the benefit of that? You're not getting any work in because you're already hurting. And that creates bad mechanics. So
it's not, like I said, that's why I have no problem saying that. It's you got to be, you literally can only listen to yourself in that situation, right? And think about the confusion that what could happen about what we just talked about, right? Someone has to go to 12 throws at 30 feet, like what you're saying, right? But what's the output? Right. The protocols for throwing for people to come back from Tommy John tell you to like shuffle at 45 feet. Like what? Huh? What are you talking about, man?
Yeah.
And if you shuffle at 45 feet, like that's like me playing catch with the Dominicans when I was in Mexico, and the guy has no feel from under 60 feet. Right. So he starts at 90 and rips 100 at me for 5 throws and then comes back in because his arm's numb, So the common sense of like progressing is you just don't see it. But in the same sense, I understand why, because if you're a dad just nowadays and you go to look at stuff, it's just crazy what you can read on there. You could really find some stuff with some doctors and go down a rabbit hole and really get scared. You could find some stuff like us, and we're going like throw every day. And you're like, well, I don't know what to say. This guy's saying throwing 7 months out of the year. This guy's saying throw every day, So you could really pit these arguments against each other and have some confusion.
Well, they're huge. I mean, it's things. I mean, I follow rabbit holes all the time, but the thing is, it has so much information. So one of my biggest fears. I'm not going to say like any company's name, but like a plyo care program, things like that. There's not just one out there. I mean, of course, you got ones that are better than others, things like that. But a kid buying or a parent buying a kid a bunch of plyo balls, thinking with no instruction of how to, the parents just watching videos. That's an extremely dangerous thing. Is not being taught correctly, and that's, I've seen guys have Tommy John because of that. They bought a package, things like that, and they're doing these programs, and what happens? Whap, there it goes. It snaps. So are those programs beneficial? They can be. So I mean, we use stuff like that all the time, but it's so dangerous if there's no instruction involved, because you've seen it so many times. I mean, with the information that's out there, I mean, it could be a parent following my page and it's like, my son's changeup sucks. And it's like, well, sorry, I didn't mean to show you a grip with Pedro whose hands are 10 times longer than mine. Like, sorry, but I mean,
yeah, there's things you're not quite sure about, and your 10-year-old kid's changeup is in the hitting speed, so you shouldn't even worry about it. Okay.
Right. So he's like, well, it's the same speed. I'm like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
if you need, or a huge one, do I need to throw a curveball at 12 years old? Well, do you need to throw a curveball to get 12-year-olds out? I mean,
hey, it depends who it is. There's a kid the other day that jumped on my live who's 13 that I've been following for 2 years. He's 6'7", 220.
Oh
right
my.
Like, the kid is a boomstick, by the way, Cass. That kid I was telling you about.
Lord.
He's 6. Like, we hopped on a live chat the other day, and he was telling me, yeah. So and I guess he took my advice 2 years ago, and he's like been all business mode since. Where he's like, he said to me, I realize that I'm special, and I need to maximize my chances.
Absolutely.
Oh, hey, 13-year-old, go ahead, go do you, kid. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a fan. I'm in. You know,
absolutely. If you're willing to take that much pride and being able to, get that committed, dude, you're especially 6'7". My Lord, I couldn't imagine. I was like 5'7" at 13. So,
and he's frustrated.
I mean,
he's frustrated.
So
like,
brutal.
I'm only like 82, 83 right now. I'm like, oh, you're only 82, 83. Okay.
Oh, you haven't hit puberty
like,
yet, man.
He's like, what? Like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, let's just talk about one thing in general, right? You can't even play professional baseball till you're 18. So I don't even know why you're mad. You got to calm down.
Right.
Okay. It's not even possible. Okay.
Right.
So that's the first thing. So you got 5 years to get to whatever your potential is. It's 6'7" at 220 at, I don't know. What are you going to throw? 110? I don't know, kid. Like, who knows?
It's so hard to teach them that big picture. So understanding, of course, it's that immediacy way of life now. It's like, well, if I want to go get, a new TV, I'm going to buy a new TV right now. It's almost like that immediate satisfaction of getting, well, I'm going to throw 90 in 5 months. Okay, well, you're 12. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you got to understand, or a 16-year-old. I mean, there's 16-year-olds that throw 90 out there, but you got to understand, like, look at your big picture. So being able to teach kids that is huge. And that's, I know you guys have been doing that a lot, is just teaching them, like, hey, it's a process, man. And
it takes time. Yeah. I mean,
it really does.
We've got kids that, we had a kid hit 90 yesterday, which was awesome. And he started off at 75, and he is so lucky that his brother is a little bit of a screw up and showed him what not to do. Right. And he told me, we had a chat actually before he threw his pen, and he was like, hey, I just want to let you know that I haven't stopped throwing since you told me, like, I don't know, long time ago. And then he called me afterwards after he hit 90 with his parents, and he was like, hey, I just want to let you know that, like, I'm not stopping. Like, I want to go to 95. I want to be throwing 95 by the time I'm a senior. I'm like, go ahead, kid. Like, you put yourself in the best chance. You've done everything we've asked you to do. You've really played the long game, and you might time this thing out. And what's the worst that happens? You're 90. You don't gain any velo, right now, and you still have your junior and senior year. Like, oh darn, But that's just not his mindset. His mindset is,
it takes what is it, 30 days to create a habit or make something become more habitual. I mean, you can't, 2 weeks is social or things like that, but you do the same things. I mean, how long has he been working with you?
I think he said 15 months is what he said.
15 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, so he's created that habit and built that rapport and that relationship. But it's. I mean, he probably will hit 95 by the end of his senior year, things like that. So, yeah, those things are cool, and it's especially when you're getting those.
Smart. He's smart to the point where we've talked about. We even talked to some kids like where we have to give them some real, honest opinions about stuff, but also encouraging. Where it's like, look, understand that this is a difficult road, but if you want to play professional baseball, you have to understand what level you have to get to, and it takes years. It takes years, okay? You got to master the game at the highest level in order to make it and give yourself a shot. And then you have to go even farther into the deep dive, right, to be the best. Right? So, doing that and giving yourself the maximum amount of time window to do that is probably the safest and best way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Absolutely. But yeah, it's crazy. Kids, I mean, the immediacy is they just want that, be able to throw hard quickly, and it's just not going to happen. So, it does for some, but creating that habit and things like that. So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know. Can you guys see? It's actually sunny here in Kansas City today. So,
oh, nice. Yeah.
I know.
No,
so I know
great.
there's a little bit of a glare. Then
it's a little sunny over here in San Diego. A little bit.
Yeah.
Cass is in Colorado. How's it in Colorado, Cass?
I was outside for a minute, a little gloomy today, but it's always sunny in Colorado. Like they have over 300 days of sun here.
Yeah, see,
nice.
So much better.
All right, let's move on to your specialty. Let's start talking change-ups. Let's start talking side spin. Let's start talking Trevor Bauer's half-colored ball that was posted. All the fun stuff. You and I have talked about 4-seam, 2-seam change, power change.
Right.
The first thing I want to ask you is how many different versions of the changeup are you aware of? I've got a couple in my head. I think I can name like 6. But it's funny how I think about it afterwards and the names and stuff. So how many can you name?
Let's see. We'll go straight here. Just
straight change, little 3-finger on top.
Straight, just 3 straight. And you got your circle. You can see that. Sorry, my camera.
Notice by the way how he's not pinching the seam. The thumb is underneath it, by the way, everybody, because the thumb controls the ball, right?
I'm gonna scoot back my camera so you can actually see. So we'll do that. Okay. So especially on the circle, is so hard. So I have the largest fingers. So they're decent. So things like here, I mean, when we throw it, we're naturally going to, especially with the circle. We'll go into that here in a moment. So we got the circle. What I've done is I modified the circle. So I realized this finger is strong. So this is my middle finger. So this is a very strong finger. That's why we throw our fastball with these 2. So if I can scoot it over a little bit here, see how it's on the side of the ball now? Now I got my ring. So I have my ring here and just let everything else lay off to the side.
Yep.
Now I can feel a lot more weight on my right side of my hand. So what does that do? That's going to create, so it'd be going this way, that way, whatever the hand you are. So I'm a righty, so it's going to go this way. So I want the ball to go that way. That's just because it complemented my fastball better. Now, if you have which is not a bad thing, but if you have your middle finger on top, you're going to get more of that downward movement. So it's going to be more of a straight rather than I want the fade on my changeup. Okay. Another one, we've got the Volcano. So the Volcano, basically what that does is it splits I don't have great flexibility on my hands, but I got here would be, that's just a nice split. Yeah, just a nice split between basically your middle and your ring finger. That's going to create more of that split effect. I would classify splitter part in the changeup family. So
I agree. I like that.
It's just a different grip. So it's going to do the same thing. It's a really hard pitch, in my opinion, to throw. I can never figure it out. Sometimes people will throw it here, so they won't move. They won't do any wrist flexion. They'll just throw it here. So I've never been a proponent of that because when I finish, so if I have a kid that throws a splitter and he doesn't, he does a flat wrist, he'll finish here and a hitter can pick that up. And especially if you can't throw it for a strike, he's just going to watch you eat the dirt. So what would that be? What, 4? So I got straight, circle, modified, Volcano, a splitter I would classify. And then, I mean, if you go along the 2 seams, you can go along 2 seams, things like that. Is that 5?
5, yep.
5? Ooh.
Yeah.
There's one more. Where you can go. I know Stroman throws. He doesn't throw his very much, but a very thing that's unique. He don't have the biggest hands in the world, but I love that guy. So he's good. He's a good dude. But if you have his thumbs on the side, not a bad thing. But his is more of a sinker because he throws a sinker a lot more. But what do you have as a 6th one?
I know that Greinke throws the little power 1 seam change.
He does throw once. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Brad
Keller tries to throw. Brad Keller throws a 1 seam and a 1 seam changeup. He tries to for the Royals. So
that's a good little segue to the thing. I think you got most of them. I mean, there's really not much more else. I mean, you could do anyway. So let's move into that same thing. So what you showed me and what I see and what we talk about is a difference of 4 seam and 2 seam spin, then also with 1 seam spin, which affects the color, the movement, and the deception of the pitch, right? And you showed a bunch of 4 seam grips right there. Is that on purpose for tunneling off your fastball? Do you try to match fastballs with your changeups?
I try my best. Depending on who it is, I've had a lot of guys that will have a 4 seam fastball, but they've gotten more action with their 2 seam. But when they throw a 4 seam, it's all over the place. Changeup. So I personally, when I was playing, and of course I still do, but I always wanted to complement my 4 seam. So I felt more comfortable. I think the reason was because I had that lace right here where my thumb is.
Yeah.
I had a lot more grip of it and I can control it. With the 2 seam, I did not like being on this part with my thumb. I felt like I didn't have any control. I wanted it on the side of the horseshoe. So that was just my personal preference on that. But complementing your fastball, the only reason at a younger age, you'll see a lot of guys that will jump from, let's say, a lot of younger, let's say 13 to 16-year-olds. They'll throw whatever's comfortable. Once we get to that higher level, there's a lot of pros that will switch their grip, complementing that pitch they throw. So just because those lower levels, kids are they reading spin that much? Not really. They're just trying to hit it. So it's a lot harder to read when you're younger. You're still developing things like that. But once you get to that pro level where they are training on spin, that's where I see a lot more guys go to what complements their fastball. Reason being is we want to throw this like our fastball, right? So if I'm throwing a 2 seam fastball, it's going to come out like this anyway, just because of that natural pronation. If I throw my 2 seam changeup, it's going to come out that same way. The only difference is we're not throwing this on our fastball. Obviously, we're not throwing our thumb at the catcher just because there's no reason to. The only reason I teach throwing our thumb at our catcher and our changeup is I want my ring finger to be on top of the ball. So if I want my ring finger to be on top of the ball, that will subtract that velo because you can feel my ring finger, like it's not a very strong finger in general. I can push down on the ball pretty good with my middle, my index, same thing. But when I come to my ring, I'm like, that just feels awkward. So that will decrease that spin on the ball and then, of course, decrease the velo on it. So a lot of guys will throw it like that. But again, it comes to personal preference. If I get more action on my 4 seam, then of course I'm going to throw it a lot more. If you are able to complement your 2 seam fastball better, boom, throw it that way. So again, personal preference. Once you get to that higher levels, a lot of guys will, of course, switch that grip. So, but teaching.
So would you say?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I was going to say, would you say that the movement seems to be the priority of the changeup? Like how much run, how much sink you can get on it, or is it the deception? Which one do you feel like is what you see the popular, or what do you see as effective?
Most effective. So I have had a lot of questions on that. So a lot of guys are like, well, mine's not moving the way it should be. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. But if we're throwing it correctly, we should be allowing at least getting close to both. So if I'm throwing it hard, if I'm throwing it slow, of course I'm gonna get a screwball. If I just throw it slow. But if I throw it like my fastball, I should be getting that deception in late movement. It really just depends on the way your grip works. Like when I throw a straight and I have my middle finger on top, and I'll do this when I'm playing catch. I'll come in from long tossing and I'll throw different changeups, but I'll throw my middle finger on top. I'm gonna get more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say split, straight, diving, changeup. When I get my modified circle, basically, I'm gonna get a lot more run. Now, when you get a little bit older and get a lot more experience, I threw a lot of my fading changeups to lefties because it's going away from them. I'm a right-handed thrower, so it would go away from that lefty, and I would get a lot of guys out, swing, ground balls, things like that. I've always been a movement guy, so I've always been huge on movement. But if you're throwing 99 to 100, you're probably not going to get a huge depth on it unless you're like was it Alvarez from Tampa Bay? I think that's his name. I was actually talking to him the other day. I forget his name, but he literally it goes boom, and he does 100 boom. So it's just like, okay, his change is only like 94, so no big deal. But when it comes to the movement, that's just been my preference, just because it's easier for it to get on a out of the hitting zone when it has more movement. Now if we have more mistakes, let's say on that middle finger change that's more up and down vertical. If I miss up in the zone, it's going to be a lot easier to be in that swing path than that movement. So I've always taught I want a little bit more movement on my changeup because it gives me more room for air, if that makes a lot more sense. So it gives me a lot more room for air when I'm able to run it on my arm side a lot better.
I also think it's a lot easier to dial it back.
Yeah.
Like, I have a big breaking ball, and I know how to have a not big breaking ball. But I have a lot of kids that it's tough for them to know how to spin it. So I totally agree. I was thinking about, though, Zach Greinke's changeup with his only being like 2 to 3 miles an hour. So that was interesting because he's definitely more of a movement guy. But yeah, it's interesting because it must just be like, he's basically throwing a fastball with side spin.
Yeah, it's like Tommy Canley. Canley does the same thing. His is like 94. It's like 91 to 94, and his is I think it's almost the exact same grip as Greinke's. So they're like the on top. I have some slow-mo video of it on my Instagram, but his comes out. They both come off the middle finger, but Greinke used to have a really, really good changeup that was a lot slower. And then I think he realized that it's just as effective when he throws his 89-mile fastball and then a 90-mile changeup. So
I bet it's easier if you think about it, right? I bet it's easier to rip it and not worry about the speed differential so much as like trying to throw the shit out of it and get as much movement as you possibly can, right? That's what I think about when I'm trying to throw my slider is like how much spin can I crank this thing on to make it move as much as possible.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's what Leitenberg said about his split finger. That's why he said he couldn't throw a changeup because he didn't know how to throw a power changeup. So he had to throw a splitty because he just had to throw it as hard as he possibly could.
Yeah. And split, if you can get a feel for it. I had a kid this spring. He was like, "I'm working on a splitter." My uncle showed me. I'm like, "Okay." And that thing, he did not know where it was going. And I'm just like, what is that? What are you throwing? Because it would just, it was a 40-footer every single time. Yeah. And I'm like, well, it's not an easy pitch to throw, bud. It's hard. So
how old was the kid?
I think he's 16, so he was a sophomore in high school.
It sounds like a good idea. You know what I mean? But you see the idea of splitters come in and out of the league, like where you see guys getting smoked and getting Tommy Johns and people are scared of it. And then like it comes back in a different form, whether it's a Volcano. But So here's a good question about the changeup. In your opinion, how do you get your changeup to go down or your splitter to go down? Because that's one of the things I see also with changeups where they float, they hang, they get smoked. What are your thoughts on that process?
Thoughts on that? So a lot of it comes to what are we doing, especially with the upper body. So a lot of guys will pull. So they'll pull, trying to create that arm side. So a lot of guys I've seen pull, and what's going to happen when you pull? You're going to leave it up. So the first reaction would be probably releasing it too early, choking it. If you're choking it, I mean, it's probably going to release just because for some reason our psyche, when we're throwing our changeup, we're like, I have to slow everything down. Well, you don't have to. You just throw it hard, let the grip work. Well, a lot of kids will think that, and then they either one don't have a strong enough hands or good enough feel for their pitch that it releases early and it just stays there. But a lot of it I've seen is that front side just boom, and then that just drags our arm and our elbow and everything with it. With floating, a lot of guys, it's so different for everybody. So a lot of guys will tighten their grip up, which will sometimes hold on a little longer, loosen it, things like that. It's such a hit or miss with a lot of kids. That's why we try to teach where we at on the seams just to get what's comfortable, because sometimes that circle is not very comfortable for a lot of kids. I'm getting this cameras. But it's not very comfortable for a lot of kids, so then we'll just bring up that index finger. But when it comes to floating, it's probably more of a mechanical issue than your grip. And if a lot of guys, I mean, what's the first thing you're going to blame? Oh, my grip sucks. Yeah, but what are you doing differently within your mechanics to make it float? So a lot of guys, it happens to be that front side open it up really early, getting that arm dragging. And one of the biggest myths when throwing a changeup, a lot of guys will curl their toes on the backside or drag their back foot. If you've ever heard that.
Yeah.
But that's something, one, that just slows everything down, in my opinion. Like, it's hard for me to show a kid to be like, hey, drag your foot just on one pitch on that backside, when really we want that, we want it to be sticky in that back leg. We want that foot to just boom, really explode, and that's what's going to get that action on it. So that's kind of my take on whether or not your changeup's floating. It's either one, you're opening up too soon, and then that's just dragging, and then your body is not used to feeling that grip in that ball like that, because, I mean, you're just ripping fastballs. But you're like, oh, that feels weird, you're just going to release it. That's when you'll see a lot of floaters, things like that. So
yeah, floaters get banged for sure. Okay. Well,
been there, done that.
For sure. We've been about an hour. Why don't we wrap this up? Why don't you tell everybody a little bit, just remind everybody what's coming. How about what's coming up on your page? Where are you focused? Because you seem to have a theme on pitching and everything right there. What can we expect in the future for the changeups that we'll be seeing?
Yeah, seeing and pitching. I mean, of course, we call ourselves Changeup University because that's kind of the niche, the route we wanted to go. So with changeups, we're going to be doing, I think, with Pitch Logic. We're going to be, working with Pitch Logic and you guys. So yeah, there it is. We're going to be doing as much as we can on grips and the spin rates we're getting. So we'll be doing a lot of videos on that. We'll be doing a lot more. I can't wait to
see that. I can't wait to see your content and your analysis of the numbers. So we should definitely get back and see if we can chat about it as it comes out. Because I love talking that stuff.
I told myself until we get a little bit larger, I just want to kind of just get as much information out. We won't do very many like videos of ourselves, things like that. Now that we've grown a little bit, I want to. Especially having the technology, it's so much easier to have that backup and things like that. So that's what's coming. We've been working a lot with the front side extension. So front side, keeping the whether it's half a second, 2 seconds, making sure that front side is extended. So we'll be doing a lot more stuff on that. Hooking the rubber, we're doing a little bit of kind of just digging into that. It's not for everybody, but I did a post on that.
That was the Pedro. That was the Pedro post.
Yeah. Pedro's post. Sandy Koufax taught me, so it was kind of cool. I read it in Pedro's book, and then I read it in an article too. So that was pretty cool to learn about that. That's what's coming, man. We're just gonna keep doing what we're doing, partnering up with some other companies. We have here Tau Trainer, which is a huge product we like a lot. So we'll be doing a lot more stuff with these, getting some drills out there. But you'll see a lot more stuff coming out. We're working with some big leaguers. Stro was on our page yesterday, just chatting it up away with some people on commenting. So go check that out. But other than that, man, we're trying to get things rolling. It's hard when you can't get outside and or you can, but a lot of kids. We suspended all of our lessons right now due to quarantine. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So seeing pitching, man, we're really excited with the direction we're headed, and we'll see, man. We'll see where things go. We're just gonna keep doing what we do, man. It's
sure. I love it. I love it. You guys, I'm an addict to the multi loop on your page all the time. Seeing the Stroman shimmy and watching the because that's the same ideas and questions I look at all the time. And there's so much quality content out there, even without analysis. You can just watch it. And like we were saying earlier, like Major League Baseball just made it a little bit easier for people to get some of this stuff. We could, I think there would be a lot. The game would evolve tremendously. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
That's what really sounds like what we're all trying to do is educate at the highest level at the earliest age.
Yeah, for sure. But no, man, I appreciate you guys having me on here. It's a lot fun talking with guys and a lot more fun being face to face with you guys and talking. So again, I appreciate that. We'll do this again. So
100%.
Thank you very much, Cole.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Thanks,
Don't forget, rate, review, subscribe. You get $25 rebate using code Cutternation for a Pitch Logic ball. Check that out, and feel free to share this everywhere. We really appreciate it. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Cole, you're awesome. Thanks, bud.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks.